In a mansion where wealth ruled louder than love, one humble maid dared to challenge the wrath of a billionaire's wife, not for power, not for fame, but to save the family that once gave her pain. In the heart of Lagos, beyond the crowded streets and noisy yellow buses, stood Ebelunia Mansion, a palace built from oil, money, and pride. The mansion sparkled in the sun like a shrine of gold, tall gates, glass walls, and gardens that smelled of imported roses. But behind those gates lived a home drenched in silence and sorrow. It was said that the owner, Chief Damilare Akinwale, was one of Nigeria's richest men. He owned factories from Ibadan to Port Harcourt, yet he could not own the peace in his own house. His wife, Madame Ronk, a woman of wealth and fury, ruled the mansion like a queen who had forgotten mercy. Her words were sharp like blades, her eyes, always searching for fault. The chief himself was rarely home, buried in his businesses, chasing more wealth, while the marriage he built slowly cracked like dry earth under the sun. Servants feared Madame Ronk, for none who angered her lasted a week. It was into this mansion that Amarachi, a 22-year-old village girl, arrived one hot afternoon. Her clothes were simple, her shoes dusty from the long journey, but her heart carried a calm spirit. She had been sent from the small town of Nsukka by a relative who promised her a job as a housemaid in Lagos. When Amarachi first saw the mansion, she whispered under her breath, "Chi, so human beings live like this?" The gateman laughed. "You better close that your mouth before Madam comes out. Here, we don't talk much. Just work, nod, and disappear." Inside, the air smelled of expensive perfume and polished marble. A house supervisor named Auntie Beezy gave her the rules. Never speak unless spoken to. Never look Madam directly in the eyes. Never ask questions. Amarachi nodded quietly, but inside her heart she said a prayer. "Lord, let me find peace here, not trouble." For the first few weeks, Amarachi worked silently, cleaning, cooking, arranging Madam's endless wardrobe. She watched as Madame Ronk scolded everyone, even her own children. The chief's eldest son, Tund, was a quiet young man, about 19, often reading alone or sitting by the window staring into nothing. Amarachi noticed his sadness, but she dared not speak. Then one night, the chief returned from a business trip. The mansion came alive with greetings, fake smiles, and hurried servants. But behind the laughter, tension grew. Amarachi overheard whispers. The chief had been seen with another woman, a younger one. That night, Madame Ronk's screams echoed through the hall like thunder. "After all I've done for you, Damilare, you bring shame to my home." Doors slammed, glass shattered, and the house trembled under the weight of anger. The next morning, the mansion was cold again, Madame Ronk silent, the chief gone. Weeks passed, and Amarachi saw what no one else dared to say aloud. The home was broken. The children were distant, the wife bitter, the husband absent. Even the servants walked on eggshells. Yet, somehow, the young maid's quiet spirit began to warm hearts. She cooked simple meals the children actually ate. She hummed soft Igbo folk songs while cleaning, and Tund began to smile again. Even Auntie Beezy whispered one day, "That girl carries grace, I tell you." But peace, in Ebelunia Mansion, never lasted long. One afternoon, Madame Ronk found Amarachi speaking to Chief Damilare's mother, the old woman who lived quietly in the guest wing. The madam's eyes darkened with suspicion. "So, you're now gossiping with Mama, eh? Planning to steal my husband's heart with fake humility?" Amarachi knelt immediately. "No, ma. I was only helping Mama with her tea." But Madame Ronk's anger burned like firewood catching flame. "You dare speak back to me? You filthy village girl. You think because you have small fine face, you can deceive men." Before Amarachi could speak again, a slap landed across her cheek. The old woman shouted, "Ronk, stop this madness." But Madame Ronk stormed off, her pride louder than her shame. That night, Amarachi wept quietly in her room. She could have left. She wanted to. But something in her heart whispered, "Do not leave yet. God sent you here for a reason." Days turned into weeks, and the cracks in the Akinwale family deepened. Chief Damilare stopped coming home altogether. Madame Ronk turned colder than before. But fate was preparing its move. For one evening, as the sun sank behind the mansion's tall gates, Amarachi overheard a phone call, Madame Ronk's voice trembling with fury. "So, you're planning to divorce me, Damelaire? You want to marry that girl from your factory? Never. I'll destroy everything you own before I let you go." Amarachi froze in the hallway, realizing the storm about to fall. The next morning, the mansion's peace shattered completely, and Amarachi's courage would soon be tested in ways she never imagined. For in the heart of Ebelunia, one maid's quiet spirit was about to stand against a billionaire's rage. Night had fallen over Ebelunia Mansion, but peace refused to rest within its walls. The rain drummed softly against the roof while thunder rumbled in the distance, as if the heavens themselves were warning of what was to come. Amarachi could not sleep. Madame Ronk's angry voice from the phone call still echoed in her ears. "You want to divorce me, Damelaire? I will destroy everything you own before I let you go." Those words burned into her heart. She knew she shouldn't have listened, but fate had opened her ears. Something told her that her silence might cost more than her job. It might cost lives. The next morning, the mansion was unusually quiet. The children had been sent to their boarding schools. Only a few servants remained. Auntie Beezy whispered that Madame Ronk had traveled to Abuja for business, but Amarachi's spirit felt uneasy. She went about her chores, polishing the marble floors and dusting the chandeliers, when she heard a faint sob coming from the guest wing. It was Mama Akinwale, the chief's aged mother. Amarachi rushed in and found the old woman holding a letter with trembling hands. "Amarachi, my daughter," the old woman said weakly, "trouble is coming to this house. My son has signed divorce papers. He wants to start a new life with another woman. Ronk has sworn vengeance." Amarachi knelt beside her. "Mama, vengeance destroys both heart and home. What can I do? I am only a maid." Mama smiled sadly. "You have more power than you think, child. You carry peace in your spirit. I have seen it. You may be the only one who can stop this family from burning itself." Those words sank deep into Amarachi's soul. Later that week, Chief Damelaire returned secretly to the mansion long after midnight. The guards were half asleep. No one saw him except Amarachi, who was cleaning the hallway. He looked tired, burdened, and older than his years. "Sir," Amarachi said softly, bowing. "Should I call Madam?" "No," he replied quickly. "Don't wake her. I came only to take some documents." He hesitated, then sighed. You're Amarachi, right? Mama speaks highly of you." She nodded silently. He looked at her, then said almost to himself, "A man can own everything in the world and still lose his peace." Amarachi wanted to comfort him, but respect sealed her lips. He left quietly. The next morning, Lagos woke to scandal. News blogs screamed headlines. Billionaire chief Damelaire Akinwale caught in secret affair with factory manager's daughter. The mansion became a battlefield. Madame Ronk returned from Abuja with fury hotter than the sun. She smashed plates, tore curtains, and fired 3 servants on the spot. "Where is that snake of a man?" she shouted. "Where is Amarachi?" Amarachi froze. She hadn't done anything, but in Madame's eyes, she was now part of the betrayal. "You think I don't see you?" Madame hissed. "You act holy, but you're the one feeding my husband information through Mama. You think I don't know your plan?" "Madame, I swear before God, I am innocent," Amarachi said, tears streaming down her face. But Madame Ronk's anger blinded her. She grabbed Amarachi by the arm and dragged her toward the gate. "Get out of my house," she screamed. The guards hesitated, but Madame's voice was law. As the mansion's gates slammed behind her, Amarachi stood in the rain, trembling. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Lord, why? I tried to bring peace. Why must I suffer for kindness?" But even as she wept, she didn't know that fate was already weaving her back into the mansion's story in a way that would shake every soul inside. 2 days later, the news broke again. Fire outbreak at Ebelunia Textile Factory, 2 injured, Chief Damelaire missing. The same factory that built the Akinwale fortune, the same one Amarachi's cousin worked at, was now a ruin. The city buzzed with gossip. Some said it was an accident. Others whispered it was revenge. Madame Ronk fainted when she heard. The mansion that once smelled of perfume now reeked of sorrow. And somewhere in a small church downtown, Amarachi knelt in prayer. Lord, if you brought me to this house for a reason, she prayed, show me what to do. Help me heal the wound that pride has opened. Her answer came not from heaven's voice, but from a trembling phone call later that evening, from Mama Akinwale. My son is alive. But Madame Ronk has accused him of burning his own factory. The police are coming. Please, my daughter, only you can save him. Come back to the mansion. Amarachi's heart pounded. She had been thrown out like trash, yet now she was being called back as hope. She rose slowly, eyes filled with determination. If God sent me into that house to bring peace, then peace I must bring, even if it costs me everything. And so, that night, under the quiet Lagos sky, Amarachi began her journey back to Ebelunia Mansion, not as a maid, but as the only bridge left between a husband drowning in guilt, a wife consumed by rage, and a home standing on the edge of ruin. The night sky over Lagos was heavy with clouds, but Amarachi's heart was heavier. The taxi she boarded rattled down the wet streets toward Ebelunia Mansion, each raindrop echoing her fear and faith. She had left that house in shame, yet something stronger than pride was pulling her back. Peace doesn't flee when storms rise, she whispered to herself. It stands until the wind learns calm. When she arrived at the gates, the security guards were stunned. Ah, Amarachi? You again, one of them asked. Better turn back. Madame Ronk said you should never step your foot here again. I was called, Amarachi said firmly, by Mama Akinwale. The guards hesitated, but the mention of the old woman's name softened their suspicion. They let her in. Inside the mansion, everything had changed. The once polished floors were dusty, the curtains half drawn, the air thick with tension. Madame Ronk sat in the living room, her face pale, eyes swollen from sleepless nights. When she saw Amarachi, anger sparked immediately. You again? Have you come to mock me? After everything, you still have the audacity to step into my home. Amarachi knelt slowly, her voice calm. No, ma. I came because Mama called. I came because your husband needs you. Ronk's laughter was bitter. My husband? The man who betrayed me? Who burned his own factory to hide his sins? Spare me, your holiness. Amarachi raised her eyes, steady and soft. He didn't burn it, ma. The fire started from a machine leak. My cousin worked there, he saw it. Chief Damelaire risked his life saving 2 workers. That's why he was injured. The room fell silent. Madame Ronk blinked, confused. For the first time, her anger met doubt. You're lying, she whispered, but her voice trembled. Amarachi placed a folded paper on the table, a report from the fire service, confirming the cause of the explosion. She had gone to the factory earlier that day, praying for truth, and God had guided her to the right people. Ronk's hands shook as she read it. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. All this time, I accused him wrongly? Amarachi spoke softly. Pain blinds even the kindest eyes, but forgiveness restores sight. Madame Ronk stood up abruptly, her pride battling her guilt. You talk too much for a maid. Yes, ma, Amarachi said, bowing. But sometimes even a maid carries a message kings refuse to hear. Ronk turned away, staring at the rain outside. The thunder rolled, not as loud as the storm inside her. That evening, Mama Akinwale called for a meeting in the mansion's dining hall. The family gathered, Madame Ronk, her 2 children back from school, and Amarachi standing quietly behind the chair. Mama Akinwale spoke with the slow authority of age. This house has seen riches, but no peace. We have prayed for blessings, yet rejected humility. God sent us a messenger in disguise, and we almost cast her away. She turned her eyes to Amarachi. My daughter, you have done what no one here could do, speak truth without fear. Today, I ask you to stay until my son returns. Madame Ronk's lips parted, shocked. Stay? After all this? Mama, she's just... Mama raised her hand. Peace doesn't come from status, Ronk. It comes from the heart that still knows compassion. For a long moment, Madame Ronk said nothing. Her pride wanted to shout no, but her spirit whispered yes. Finally she sighed. Fine. Let her stay. But only until Damelaire returns. Amarachi bowed. Thank you, Ma. That night, as everyone went to their rooms, Amarachi lingered in the kitchen, whispering a song from her village, a soft Igbo tune about healing hearts. When the heart breaks, the river dries. But when forgiveness flows, peace returns. Unknown to her, Madame Ronk stood at the doorway watching. Tears glistened in her eyes. Days passed, and slowly, the mansion began to breathe again. The children smiled more. Mama's laughter returned. Even Madame Ronk softened. She began sitting quietly in the garden while Amarachi tended to the flowers. But peace once again was tested. One evening, a black car drove into the compound. The door opened, and Chief Damelaire stepped out, weak, wounded, but alive. The family rushed out to meet him. Madame Ronk froze where she stood, torn between love and anger. Their eyes met, years of pride and pain caught in a single moment. Then, Amarachi quietly stepped forward. Sir, she said gently, Madame waited for you. And for the first time in years, Chief Damelaire smiled faintly. Did she? Madame Ronk's lips trembled. I thought you burned the factory, she whispered. He shook his head. I almost burned myself trying to save others. Silence hung thick in the air. Then Amarachi said softly, maybe God allowed the fire, not to destroy your wealth, but to remind you of what truly matters. Chief Damelaire looked at her, then at his wife. Tears welled up in both their eyes. That night, for the first time in years, the lights in Ebelunia Mansion glowed warm again. But the story was not yet over. For in the shadows of peace, a new danger waited, one that would test Amarachi's courage in ways love and kindness alone could not. Morning returned to Ebelunia Mansion with the sound of birds and distant car horns. For the first time in months, the air smelled of peace, but it was the fragile kind, the kind that trembles before the storm. Chief Damelaire was recovering in his study. Madame Ronk had begun to speak to him again, though her tone still carried the pride of old wounds. Amarachi moved quietly around the house, helping, praying, watching. But deep within her spirit, something didn't sit right. There were questions still unanswered. How had the fire started so suddenly? Who leaked the scandal to the blogs? And why did the factory's insurance papers go missing the very week before the fire? One afternoon, Amarachi was cleaning the study when she found a brown envelope hidden beneath the chief's broken safe. The papers inside were burnt at the edges, but the names were still visible. She froze. The documents showed that the factory's ownership had been secretly transferred to a company registered under the name Ronella Enterprises, and the listed CO was Ronk A. Kinwale. Amarachi's eyes widened. Madame Ronk owned the company that now controlled the burnt factory. Her heart pounded. Oh Lord, could Madame have planned all this? Before she could think further, she heard footsteps. Madame Ronk entered the study. What are you doing in here? Amarachi turned slowly, clutching the papers behind her. Just cleaning, Ma. Madame's eyes narrowed. Cleaning? Or searching? There was a heavy silence. Amarachi's hands trembled. She could feel her chest tightening, but she stood her ground. Madam, I found something. And I must speak the truth, even if it costs me. Madame Ronk's expression turned stone cold. You forget your place. Amarachi stepped forward, voice calm but firm. With all respect, Ma, truth has no rank. You blamed Chief for the fire, but these papers say otherwise. Why did you transfer the factory's ownership to your company before it burned? Madame Ronk's face darkened like a gathering storm. How dare you question me, you ungrateful girl? Do you think you can stand before me and accuse me? I am not accusing, Amarachi said softly. I am asking. Because the truth can heal this house, or destroy it completely. For a moment, the madam said nothing. Then, in a burst of anger, she snatched the papers from Amarachi's hands and tore them apart. You know nothing. That factory was mine to protect. Damelaire wanted to leave me with nothing. Nothing after I built his empire beside him. Amarachi's voice shook but did not break. You built it with love once. not with revenge. You are losing the same home you're trying to save. Ronk's eyes filled with rage. Get out, before I do something I'll regret. But before Amarachi could move, the door opened. Chief Damelaire stood there, leaning on a walking stick, his face pale with disbelief. Ronk, is it true? The madam froze. Her lips trembled, her pride cracking like glass. Dammy, I only wanted to secure what's ours. You were going to replace me, leave me behind. The chief's voice broke. I was never going to leave you. I only wanted peace. You burned it all with your fear. Ronk dropped to her knees, weeping. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just wanted to keep what we built. The old woman, Mama Akinwale, appeared at the doorway, supported by Auntie Beezy. Ronk, pride is a poison that kills its drinker first, she said. You tried to protect wealth and forgot that peace is the true treasure. Madame Ronk covered her face, sobbing quietly. Amarachi stood aside, tears in her eyes. She had seen powerful people fall before, but never like this. Never so human, never so broken. Chief Damelaire turned to Amarachi. My daughter, you've done what no lawyer, no priest could do. You've uncovered truth where all of us lived in lies. But before anyone could speak again, a loud bang came from outside. The mansion's front gate burst open. Police cars rolled in, sirens blaring. 2 officers stepped in, holding an arrest warrant. We have orders to detain Madame Ronk Akinwale for investigation regarding the Ebelunia factory fire and insurance fraud. The room froze. Chief Damelaire tried to stop them, but Ronk raised her hand. No, let them do their work. Maybe this is the price for my pride. As she was led away, she turned to Amarachi. You have every reason to hate me, but you chose truth instead. Don't let my children forget who you are. Amarachi bowed deeply, tears falling. I won't, ma. The gates closed behind the police cars, and silence filled the mansion again. Mama Akinwale placed a trembling hand on Amarachi's shoulder. Child, you have defied not just a woman, but the spirit of pride itself. But the journey isn't over. True healing is not when truth is spoken, it's when forgiveness is accepted. Amarachi nodded, her heart heavy yet peaceful. She looked at the mansion, once bright with gold, now humbled by truth. The storm had come, and peace was still far away. But for the first time, the light of Ebelunia was no longer shining from wealth. It was shining from courage. Weeks passed after Madame Ronk's arrest, and Ebelunia Mansion grew quieter than ever. The tall gates no longer opened for politicians or rich visitors. Only the sound of the gardener's broom swept through the empty compound. Amarachi remained in the house, not as a maid anymore, but as a caregiver for Mama Akinwale and the children. Chief Damelaire moved like a man burdened by both guilt and gratitude, guilt for letting pride destroy his home, gratitude for the village girl who had become his strength. One Sunday morning, the family gathered for prayer in the sitting room. Mama Akinwale's voice, though weak, filled the air. Lord, teach us that no matter how high a house stands, it will fall if it forgets the foundation of love. Tears filled everyone's eyes, even Amarachi's. Later that day, a knock came at the mansion gate. When Auntie Beezy opened it, she gasped. Madame Ronk stood there, wearing a simple Ankara gown, her once elegant jewelry replaced with humility. She had been cleared of major charges. The investigation proved she didn't start the fire intentionally. But the experience had changed her heart completely. When Amarachi saw her, she froze in shock. Ronk stepped forward slowly, tears in her eyes. Amarachi, she whispered, I don't deserve to stand here. But I came to say, thank you. Amarachi knelt instantly. Noma, please don't. You are the madam of this house. Ronk shook her head. Not anymore. I was the madam of pride. You were the servant of peace. The 2 women embraced, and the mansion seemed to breathe again, like a long-suffering spirit finally released. That evening, the family sat together at dinner for the first time in months. The children laughed again. Chief Damelaire held his wife's hand, trembling. Ronk, he said softly, can we start again? She nodded through tears. If you will let me be your partner, not your rival. He smiled faintly. You always were. Mama Akinwale, watching from her seat, turned to Amarachi. My daughter, you have done what even wealth could not. You brought back love. What shall we do for you now? Amarachi lowered her head humbly. I don't need anything, Mama. I only ask that this house never forget the lesson it has learned, that peace is richer than gold. Mama smiled, her old eyes bright with pride. You speak like a prophetess. But tell me, what will you do now? Amarachi looked around the table, at the family she had served, fought for, and healed. Then she spoke softly. I will return home to Nsukka. I want to open a small training center, to teach young girls that service is not shame and humility is not weakness. That even a maid can be a vessel for destiny. Everyone in the room went silent for a moment. Then Chief Damelaire stood up. Then I will sponsor it, he declared. It will be called Ebelunia Foundation, in memory of the house that found peace through a maid's courage. Amarachi's tears flowed freely. Thank you, sir. Weeks later, Amarachi left Lagos. The mansion's gates opened wide as the family and servants gathered to see her off. Even Madame Ronk hugged her tightly. If ever pride tries to return to this house, Ronk said, smiling faintly, we will remember the girl who stood before a billionaire's wife and taught her what true strength means. Amarachi smiled. And I will remember that forgiveness is the only crown that fits every head. As her taxi disappeared down the long road, the sun rose over Ebelunia Mansion, warm, golden, peaceful. The mansion that once stood as a symbol of wealth now stood as a symbol of restoration.